Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
Welcome into Purple Access. It's Judd, Chip Scoggins, Star Tribune sports columnist, Ross Brendel, producing as always for this show. So Chip Scoggins, we were both out at TCO Performance Center on Wednesday. It's the beginning of a huge week. I want you to give me your thoughts on this. So what is your own personal feeling, and what did you think the vibe was at TCO when it comes to Sunday's game? Because it's obviously a huge game, 14-2 teams. The team that wins the game in Detroit is going to get the top seed, get a week bye, get home field. So like from that end, for fans and for us, it's this enormous buildup and huge game. It is big for the Vikings, but what was your feeling about how the team is processing this, beginning with O'Connell down to the players?
Business as usual. It didn't feel any different than it has all season. I mean, this is a confident, upbeat, positive, tight-knit as team as I've been around. They don't seem to get two up, two down. I mean, there hadn't been too many downs this year, obviously, with two losses, but they don't seem to be affected by whatever the situation is. So it seemed pretty loose, pretty, I mean, obviously understanding everything's at stake, but there was never any, we've seen teams where in these moments they get tight and you can feel it's tense and the temperature is rising. I didn't get that sense at all being around them yesterday. Not even one bit.
I didn't either, which is really odd. It's refreshing, but odd.
Yeah.
Ordinarily, like a matchup will get, a coach uptight or players uptight. I do think what we're seeing though is, and this has to be crafted, but I do think what we're seeing is a very interesting sort of psychological profile of how good teams process things.
Yeah.
Because I asked at Aaron Jones's press conference that he does on Wednesdays, I asked him about like the feeling of this game because, it's a huge game. And he's like, we've made the playoffs. He's like, it's important, but we've made the playoffs. It's such an interesting difference between how we process things, which is we're talking about a first round bye here. We're talking about a bye week. We're talking about this and that. And the players know that, but how different that felt. And I'm with you. I didn't feel this felt to me like week 6.
Yeah, well, it did. I mean, you wouldn't known that this is Judd in terms of regular season games, not postseason, but regular season games. I mean, I've been here 25 years. There hasn't been a bigger one than this. Now, maybe there has been in their franchise history. I don't know, but you cannot get higher stakes than a winner take all number 1 seed and first round bye. That's the highest you can get for a regular season game. But you wouldn't have known it by their demeanor, and I think probably part of that was a lot of it. I think that's a reflection of Kevin O'Connell. I think it's a reflection of their leadership, the veterans, but I also think there's an understanding is like, if you go so far into, oh my gosh, this game is so big and everything's riding on this, what if you lose? Like,
right. That's exactly right.
It's hard to come back. So it's not like this isn't a must win. Now, in some ways you'd say, obviously their path would be a heck of a lot easier if they do win, but it's not like their season's over if they lose. And so I think guys have put it in the proper perspective. And I just think that there is an excitement level within this team in terms of being together, playing the way they are, and just going out and seeing if they can continue this ride more than this pressure or tension of, oh my gosh, there's so much riding on this game. Because they do not seem like a uptight group at all.
It's rare that you have a team that feels like they're having as much fun. Like we're in week 18, man. It's football. It's hard.
And they're beat up.
Yeah, they're beat up. But it's a credit, starting with O'Connell especially. It's a credit to the mindset. It's also a credit to the guys that they have signed, and that it's not only that the free agent class is really good, but they've been a marvelous fit from day one too.
That's it, and that's the thing. I'm writing a column for tomorrow. It should post here. This is Thursday. Should post here
any second now. It's going to post
any second. Yeah, while we're here. just on that free agent class, and Kwesi too.
Yep.
We've all criticized him a lot over the draft classes, and particularly the first one, and those moves and what hadn't panned out. But it's only fair to come back and say, look at this free agent class. You just do not see this where normally you bring in free agents, one of them's not going to work out or not going to be as good as you thought or whatever.
Absolutely.
Name a guy in this. They signed 16 free agents and traded for 2, Cam Robinson and Cam Akers.
Mm-hmm.
Name a guy who hasn't exceeded or lived up to what you thought they might be. And some of these guys you never heard of, and they're producing. I mean, I didn't know Jerry Tillery from anybody, and he comes in here and the guy's making splash plays all the time. And you think about today, Sam Darnold has produced a worthy MVP season. He's probably not going to win, but he's obviously going to be getting votes.
He's top 5.
He's top 5.
He's
for
in
sure.
that discussion.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Jonathan Grenard, starting Pro Bowl.
Pro Bowl.
Andrew Van Ginkel, starting Pro Bowl. Aaron Jones, where would this offense be without him?
Yep.
Go on down to Cam Robinson. They haven't lost since they lost Christian Darrisaw, and they made this trade. Stephon Gilmore. Think about what we were talking about in training camp in July. You had the tragic death of Kyrie Jackson. Mekhi Blackman goes out. You're wondering who's going to play cornerback. Like, this was a major problem, through no fault of their own. Unfortunately, the tragedy of what happened to Kyrie Jackson. And you go out and sign Stephon Gilmore, and he just stabilized everything. Shaq Griffin has stabilized things. So I think you have to credit Kwesi. Now, I think his managerial style is to really, really trust the football guys, his coaches and personnel people, because he comes from the Wall Street background, and say, who do we like? What do we need? Particularly on defense, Brian Flores, what kind of skill set fits you? Blake Cashman. We need Blake Cashman. Okay. Mm-hmm. You have to give credit to the guy who signs him. Maybe he didn't always discover, but you have to figure out how to fit him and all that. So, but to your point, if you just look at the free agents and the drafted and the traded guys, that's 18 guys, 18 to 15. So a third of the roster. Now you add in the draft class, basically half this roster is new. For them to connect this quickly and have this kind of chemistry when you basically have half a new roster is pretty special. And I don't think this is not something you see very often.
No, and this is in its totality the best free agent class they've ever signed. Like they've never had anything. The 2006 class that Childress got was pretty good, and Hutch was a phenomenal guard. But when you look at this whole thing and you look at the guys that left and the guys that replaced them and the Darnold, and look, it's been a perfect storm too. This is what happens when a coach and GM work hand in hand. And yes, I don't think Kwesi really goes and scouts. Like, I think he goes and watches guys, but I think that he also has done a marvelous job with the books, keeping in who he can get, who he can't get, deferring money. I actually think that there is a very good case to be made, despite the 2022 draft and the fact that we'll complain about that until he leaves. I think that there's a good case to be made. He is executive of the year in the league when you look at what they did. And look, if he had said to you, if when he started, the day he got the job and talked about a quote unquote competitive rebuild, which to me was a nebulous, what are you talking like competitive rebuild? Yeah. This was it. This was it. It wasn't keeping guys. It was jettisoning guys, replacing them. And really the most important thing is, yes, his drafts have not been across the board great, but the free agent class, everyone has come in, most part veterans, and contributed immediately. That is what the competitive rebuild was really all about.
Yeah, and I to me, Kevin O'Connell was a lock to win Coach of the Year. I don't think that's going to be a close vote. I don't think it's going to be close. I said he should be in the discussion, Kwesi. Now, I don't know all the other front offices, and I think the Detroit guy has really built a very good roster there through the draft. But you just don't see a free agent class this much. And let's remember, I think it's an easy decision, but he did said no to Kirk Cousins. He didn't get sucked into, the uncertainty of the fear of the quarterback. And Daniil. And also freed up all this cap space coming next year. So I think if we're going to criticize, we also have to turn around and say, you know what? this free agent class has been pretty remarkable. But it is fascinating that how close this team feels. it's kind of the chicken and egg, Judd. Like when you're winning, does that make you closer? Or did you win because this team got close?
I
Probably
think
both.
it started in training camp.
Yeah.
I think it started in training camp, and I think as much as our beloved colleague Royce hates the word culture, this whole thing reeks of culture. And I say that in a good way. Reeks in a really good way. Like this is when people throw the term around, and it's a cliche by now, but this is it. Like O'Connell, I can't begin to describe how impressed I've been.
Yeah. Yes. He's the X's and O's, I think we thought we knew he would be good at that. He's probably better than I.
He's a better play caller than I, because it's hard.
And look at the number of guys he schemes open all the time. You know, I mean, it's just play calling and just system and everything. The fact that he felt comfortable enough to go out and get a former head coach in Brian Flores to be his defense coordinator and didn't feel threatened by that speaks to something.
Yep.
But it just the vibe. I mean, I'm kind of on this nostalgia thing because I had my 25th anniversary at the Star Tribune this week. So I've been reflecting.
Congratulations.
Thank you. On all the teams. I'm writing this for Sunday, Judd. I've always said that the 03 Wild and the 09 Vikings were my favorite teams and seasons to cover.
Yep.
One, because of unexpected success, and the 09 Vikings, I think, is the most talented team I've ever covered.
Yep.
But this one's been the funnest, the most entertaining, enjoyable experience of covering the team this year. I think because of what you're talking about, the culture. Obviously, the winning and the unexpected. We all love unexpected success, right? It's a great story. But it's a cool locker room to cover in terms of personalities, characters, stories, guys willing to talk, and it's
there's no drama.
There's no drama, but also just I think they've signed the right kind of guys,
and that's the credit. But that's the starting point. Is not only did they go out and sign a slew of free agents, they signed guys that all character-wise, Grenard, Van Ginkel, go through the entire list, Shaq Griffin, Gilmore, they all fit in perfectly. I'm glad that you brought up the 03 Wild, because I want to give you two snapshots here, okay?
Yeah.
Because I covered that team with you in 03, and then I saw something on Sunday that reminded me of that. And both of these teams were, like the 09 Vikings, when Favre came in, the expectations went way sky high, because that team was literally in need of a quarterback. They found one, and they were really damn good. But the 03 and the 24 Vikings, it was like, in 03, third year from expansion. And I remember the snapshot that I will always remember from that is after Bruno scored the game-winning overtime goal against Waugh in Game 7. I looked at the bench, and Jacques Lemaire looked at his longtime friend and assistant, Mario Tremblay, and gave him this half, what did we just, but it was like a smirk, but it was also this astounding, like, we just beat the Avalanche. And Jacques had won Stanley Cups, Montreal, so I mean, this guy was he was used to success, but even he, in that look, acknowledged this is off the charts. On Sunday, I'll give them credit. Vikings Entertainment Network does a fantastic job post-game. And my favorite shot of the entire season was the one where they got the frame of O'Connell sort of trying to stand. And in fact, he said, I was trying to get out of the frame, but he couldn't. So his back's up against a wall, chalkboard, I think, or blackboard. And the team is lifting Darnold in the air, going crazy about Sam's great game. And O'Connell had that sort of Lemaire look of pride, like proud of parent. This a proud parent. It was like he was almost not near tears, but he was moved. And that to me is the snapshot. Like, it's those moments where you're like, this really is special. Yeah. Well, you can say that, but I mean, they're special, but they're living it, right? I mean, these seasons we've been through, they don't happen that often. Right. Like, you got to enjoy it. And it drives me crazy sometimes. I was talking about this with Matthew Collar the other day. Is like, where fans are like, get back to me when they win the Super Bowl. Really? That's how you live your life? It's like Super Bowl or misery? Like, how can you not enjoy
a season like this with a team like this that, was predicted to win 6 games. Darnold comes out of nowhere as an MVP candidate. They're winning these close games. They're all tense and dramatic, and sometimes they probably drive fans crazy that they don't, but they find a place to win. They're likable guys in terms of dealing with them, and so. And you can see, I think O'Connell's starting to show more of his emotion here down the stretch because I think he realizes you just don't get these opportunities every year. I mean, yes, the Brady, Belichick, they did, but every other team does not get these opportunities to have this kind of special season. Now,
Right.
you like to see him. Let's see what the last chapter is, and you hope
Right.
it's not a dud, but. This is just to see it kind of build and crescendo, and it's like been a wave, just kind of gradually gaining steam. And it's been, you watch those O'Connell speeches in the locker room after the game, after wins, and you just get a real sense of how much love there is and how much appreciation for what they're doing. In this was it 9-game win streak or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. What's intriguing too, though, is he manages, and this is probably a fine line to walk. He manages to keep the stress down, but he doesn't suppress the emotion, including in himself, which I find to be a very interesting thing. And that goes back to why the fact that it feels like week 6 out there right now intrigues me, because I do think that there's a huge appreciation. Like they know what's at stake. I don't think he's trying to suppress how they feel, but he's definitely doing a good job of tamping down, not the expectations, but sort
Pressure.
of, what would creep up as pressure or a team becoming tight. It's a really interesting ability, I guess, for O'Connell to have.
Well, yeah, and as I always say, you want leaders to either you want them to lower the temperature, not raise the temperature. In good times, bad times, tension. Because this could be a tense week, right? There's you just don't have games of this magnitude in the regular season, and so there would be that human nature, like, oh my gosh, this is we got to really focus. We got to don't get out. Even Sam Darnold, I think we were talking to him yesterday at his press conference. He's like, same routine. I'm just programmed to have this kind of regimented routine, and he's not breaking from it. So if they lose Sunday, I don't think it will be because they're uptight. I think it's just it might be a turnover, it might be because Detroit's just plays a great game, but I don't think they'll be uptight Sunday at all.
What's your guess here? So Detroit is banged up really bad on defense. I think they've got like 16 guys out, but their offense is still the best when it comes to scoring. The Vikings defensively are good. The Vikings, I guess my question is this, because you're not going to stop Detroit completely. It's just not going to. That's an unrealistic expectation. What is your feeling about the Vikings? Because this could turn into a shootout. What is your, Darnold, Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, Jones?
This time,
So what's your gut tell you about game flow and what the Vikings can do offensively?
Yeah, they didn't have Hawkinson last time, right?
Nope, they did not. First game against them since he got hurt against them last year on the cheap shot.
And I think Darnold's in a better spot now. He's on a roll, right? He's in a. I think it's going to be a shootout. I don't think either defense can really keep this a low-scoring game. As much as the Vikings have done a good job of limiting points, I think they're at least second in the league in defensive scoring. I think Detroit has so much firepower. I call me just fooled by or swayed by the hometown team, but I think because of the Detroit's injuries on defense, I think they'll have a hard time controlling Jefferson.
They will.
And those guys. So I think it'd be something like I would probably pick them to win. The Vikings go in there, even though that atmosphere is going to be crazy, but 37-34, something like that. I think it's going to be a high scoring shootout. I really do. I think both offenses are really going to put up some points.
Scoring, the Vikings are 4th. The Lions are actually tied for 8th. So they've done well, but the game Monday night in San Fran scored a lot of points. So I want to run this past you. So I was thinking, when did things change for Darnold? Not as far as he's been a pleasant surprise. He's been good since the season started, Chipper. But I was watching the game on Sunday, and I mean, he's doing things now he didn't do. And O'Connell's talked about this. He's doing things now he did not do for, a good portion of the season. And then there were the back-to-back wins against the Colts and Jaguars where he threw 5 picks and it was a complete mess. Comes back against the Titans, beats them. It plays okay. But here's the evolution of Darnold theory. I think it dates to week 12 at Chicago. Because that's the game in which Justin Jefferson caught 2 passes. And I don't think I've ever seen a player in my lifetime have a worse box score and a bigger day.
Yeah.
Addison and Hawkinson became his primary targets. And I think that was the day where O'Connell probably as well a bit, but I think Darnold took a huge step there towards saying Justin Jefferson's presence scares teams so much that if I can go through my progressions like I should, because I went back and looked. Darnold's thrown 11 picks. The majority, I believe, have been to Jefferson.
Yeah.
So I think that Chicago game was the first one where they're like, use him to your advantage, but it doesn't mean that you have to force him the ball. And really since then, because that guy that we saw on Sunday, Chipper, he's going through 4 reads.
I know. It's interesting because I remember being in London and watching that game play. Now, Aaron Jones got hurt, went out early there. But it felt like everything was just a deep shot to Jefferson. He drew some pass interference penalties, I think 2, maybe 3 against the Jets that day. But it was just like air it out to Jefferson. That was what he was doing. And then he went through the stretches where he had the injury things or the turnovers at Jacksonville. But I'd probably agree with you because didn't Jefferson draw 2 PIs against Chicago, or at least one big one?
I think he drew 2, and one was a real big one. Yeah,
but I think you're right in that he saw, because that's when was that the same week that Addison did the thing on social media, free whatever.
It was around that time.
Yeah.
Free 3.
The offense became different. Yeah, the offense became different. Where Addison became such a big part of it, and now you can incorporate him, Hawkinson, and you don't have to just rely on Jefferson to either get a big play or, a PI. So you're right. You're probably right. Because, but something happened after Jacksonville, because I don't know if it was, because they talk so much about feet nice, where are your feet nice? Now, maybe it was just mechanical. Maybe it was, really fundamentals. But, he's just his decision making is so on point right now, and not putting balls in bad spots. Not to say he's not. The interception the other day was a bad throw, but again, the response. You asked him yesterday about the response. He comes right back. Was it 5 for 5 touchdown drive?
5. Yep, it was great.
I just we knew he was talented, but I didn't know that he was this mentally tough and able to kind of move past things.
Yeah, and he won't talk about this stuff, at least in his pressers, but I'm curious, how much did the Jets thing help him out? Was he always like this and just got poor coaching and wasn't good enough to go through his progressions? There's 2 things here. One is he clearly has a great coach and a receiving offensive core around him that's fantastic. But you're right, credit to him. He is mentally tough, and here's the thing too. He is mentally tough, and his ability to tune out the bad now.
Yeah.
It was almost like the Jaguars game. He wasn't like that though. The picks compounded themselves, and you're like, this is going really bad, and he's in a funk. And I was like, uh-oh, because that to me was the start of a problem. Well, whatever happened after that, it was like, I don't know if he forgets about it now. I don't know how he compartmentalizes his mistakes, but you're right. This feels like a very different guy than back, against the Colts game or the Jags game.
Well, I think I do think it's probably just being in the system more, right? It just stands to reason he was going to be better and more comfortable in the system later in the season than he was earlier in the season.
Sure.
Right? And so I think there's probably some of that.
But that pick against Green Bay was bad, and he came back mentally. He was like,
it didn't happen.
Done.
Yeah, like it didn't happen.
I mean, not every QB who has played here can tune out mistakes.
No, it compounds into something else.
Yeah, you know who I'm talking about.
But I do think, between O'Connell, McCown, I think has been huge for him.
I agree with you on that.
We see him, a little insight while we're waiting for interviews. Those quarterbacks are on the field a long, long time after practice, going through who knows what. But
I think that's hands, eye, and feet.
Probably, yeah.
Like, because it's drop back.
They all do the stuff. Yeah. They all do
I think it's trying to sync things up. Which and look, I mean, the coaching's been fantastic. I just think the evolution of Sam Darnold's been so interesting to watch, and like, there's a lot going on that clearly we don't see, but you can pick up on things sometimes.
And how much do you think too? Just O'Connell's, and I assume the rest of the coaching staff, just positive reinforcement and not beating a guy up for making mistakes.
Huge.
That when you're constantly told, hey, you're doing great, and even if you make a mistake, don't worry about it. We're not, versus just getting, booed and pounded, and your confidence. He may be the most confident guy in the world, but you can't tell me you didn't lose some confidence when you're playing in New York and you're playing bad, or So it's. I don't know that there's a better story in the NFL this year than Sam Darnold. I just don't think there is.
As far as a comeback story goes, no. Yeah. And you might be right across the board. Like this is one of the great stories for all of the older quarterbacks or backups that the Vikings have, taken on. Keenum, 2017, great story. But this is a top 3 pick who was a complete bust. Mm-hmm. Baker Mayfield from the same draft, taken first by Cleveland. Okay, he had some tough times, but he wasn't always a complete bust.
This guy was he had some good times. Yeah.
This guy was done. This guy was donezo. Goes to San Francisco, gets forgotten about, which is why I will not be surprised one bit if Daniel Jones comes back here for another year, because I do think what Darnold said, I thought that was really intriguing. What he talked about his year in San Francisco and saying a backup quarterback is the best job if you want to learn.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a really, like it confirmed things that made sense. But for him to, he doesn't articulate a lot of things, and he articulated that very clearly. And I thought to myself, I bet he's told Jones, just stay put, and you're going to get a real education by spending an entire year here with O'Connell and this staff.
I do think it's probably good for him to step away, not be a starter, not go into another situation where he can just exhale and learn as a backup. Because he said, when you're a backup, you got to prepare as if you're starting, right? So you're going through all the game plan. You just don't get the reps in practice, but you got to do all the other stuff to be prepared. So, but in saying that, this year has showed me more than anything with quarterbacks. Man, circumstances and situation matters. I mean, and that's the thing for Daniel Jones. I mean, it just does.
It does.
I mean, no one knows that more, because you can't go from what Darnold's doing to all of a sudden now we're talking about him being in the MVP discussion in 1 year. Circumstances absolutely matter, And so that's for Jones or whoever, or whatever happens with Darnold after this year, which I think this is going to be so fascinating to figure out what the next step is. Let's enjoy this part. Yeah. But the next step is no one knows more than him the importance of circumstance and situations.
And where I'll defend O'Connell a little bit is this, because he collects QBs. We know that. I contend that there will be a day that there will be a Vikings practice where there's 53 guys in red jerseys, and then O'Connell will be happy. But all of that being said, here's the difference between he does a really good job and then, well, you could go get anyone and he'll fix them, unless it's as we saw in 23, unless it's a break glass in case of emergency, we got to go get Dobbs thing. You know, you're not going to get in that building unless O'Connell believes that you can be saved. So like that, that's why last spring in talking to that church group, he said around the building, I'm known as the QB killer, because he won't let anyone in. Like, he clearly sees some things in Jones, but there is a list, and we don't know it, but there is a list of quarterbacks who probably would knock on that door and be told, thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, and then, obviously jumping into a team mid-season versus getting the training camp and all that, because this is a complicated thing. And his feet, hands, eye, whatever, that's all, they were practiced at, so much. That's a different thing. But no, I think he has an idea of, no matter what their track record was before, I think he thinks he can fix them if the guys that he sees something in.
If he likes them. Exactly.
Yeah, if he likes it. Yeah.
Exactly right. All right, Roscoe, let's end with a percentage game. What do you got for us?
I'm going to give you guys a chance to sway the jury, so to speak, all the Vikings fans, and it entails the game on Sunday, okay? So just hear me out, put some thought into your response, and just know that all Vikings fans are waiting for your answer here. If the Vikings beat the Detroit Lions on Sunday night, I want from both of you the percent chance, not win, but the percent chance if the Minnesota Vikings beat the Detroit Lions, they appear in the Super Bowl. That's part one. Percent chance if the Minnesota Vikings do not beat the Detroit Lions on Sunday night, that the Minnesota Vikings appear in the Super Bowl. I will let you guys decide who goes first, because I do think, I've said this numerous times to both of you guys, I don't think if the Vikings lose on Sunday, nobody can say it's a failed season. But I know if the Vikings lose on Sunday, I am incredibly skeptical that they can do much of significance in the playoffs versus if they win. So your percent chances.
I would say if they win, 35%. If they lose, 20.
Oh, that's good if they lose.
I like that
15,
if they
20.
lose.
15, 20, yeah.
You just pumped me up, Chip. You pumped me up.
I'd say 25 to 30% if they win. I'd say 5% if they lose as far as percentage chance. But here's the thing with this team. Until they prove me completely wrong in saying this, they do feel different. They do feel different. There's a lot of Vikings teams that I would say had no shot in hell of going on the road, starting with Super Wildcard Weekend and going to the Super Bowl. I would not remove that possibility from this team. It would be a long shot, but this team's wired. I mean, we have to accept the fact that until they fall apart completely, they feel like they're wired very differently.
I think they're wired differently, and I also look at it as I don't see a Mahomes, a Josh Allen, that type of team that's on this side. Detroit obviously would be tough. I mean, if you had to go win in Philly, although Philly's weird, right?
Very
I think
weird.
Really,
I can't figure them out.
I think they're super talented, and obviously they got a great player.
The anti-Vikings. They're like volatile constantly.
Yeah,
Sirianni's a nut job. O'Connell's stability. Yeah,
that's why team. I think if they lose I don't think the percentage is like super low, because it's like, okay, you're going to go win in Kansas City against Mahomes. Like, I'd probably say no. But
you said something early, Chip, where you said if the Vikings lose to the Lions, would you say it won't be because they're basically rattled that they'll be ready to play?
That they're too uptight or whatever.
Yeah, they're too uptight. I actually think if the Vikings do lose to the Lions and come back and play that following Sunday or Monday in the divisional round, I do not think they won't be ready to play. I think Kevin O'Connell will absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think that. I wouldn't worry about that.
Ready to go.
Yeah,
it's
that's
just
why.
A road.
Yeah, it goes back to what Judd and I were saying. It's like I think the way they're approaching this game is that they're not putting all the eggs in one. Like if they don't win this, all is lost. Like I think they're looking at it as like, we're a good team. We're going to keep doing what we're doing. So I think they're in a good spot that way mentally.
But the week off would be huge.
Yeah,
the
week off.
Can I prod on one quick follow up on that percentages?
Yeah.
Both of you guys, I think, went with 30 to 35, 30 to 40%.
I said 25.
I think 30. I think I said 30. Yeah, I can't remember what it said.
That seems a bit low to me because you'd have both games at home now against good competition. But is there a reason why your percentages, in my opinion, that seems a bit low?
Ooh, 40 is really high. 50.
Yeah,
it feels too
I just don't
high.
think it's a flip of the coin ever in the playoffs. Yeah, I mean, because you're playing
volatility
great teams, or good teams. Yeah. I think 30 or 35. I think I said 30.
I think
I think that's high, just in the playoffs, because you're facing good teams, right? So it's not like you're just going to be overwhelming anybody,
Exactly. All right, boys, we are done.
Alrighty.
Chipper, talk to you next week. Purple Access.
Playoffs, baby.
Playoff access. Well, it'll either be a playoff preview or we'll talk about the rest. How great the rest is. Either way, you can't lose. See you guys.
Hey, boys.